On Thursday evening, amidst hundreds of ordinary residential high-rises, a new wave of heated arguments swept through the apartment, snugly nestled among them between the spouses. Ilona persistently pressed for a breakthrough in her husband's indifference, conducting an intense interrogation. "What's good in our lives? I'm tired from work," he excused himself. Such a response greatly irritated Ilona. "Your job hasn't changed in 2 years, and you never complained about being tired before." And suddenly, "Yes, it's winter outside, cold, lacking vitamin D. You could have taken the family to the sea, maybe then new energy would appear," she expressed her thoughts. But instead of an answer, Ilona received only her husband's habitual sour expression. "The car needs fixing, it's unfinished. I don't have time for this now. Leave me to eat in peace." Ilona picked up her daughter and headed to the bedroom, loudly slamming the door behind her. "Sweetie, go play, Mom needs to talk to Aunt Macy," she released her daughter onto the floor, pointing at the colorful toys. At that moment, Ilona grabbed her phone from the table and messaged her friend. "We're fighting again. He doesn't want to listen to me at all. Just keeps saying, 'Let me eat in peace,' selfish." After a while, a response came from her friend. "More disagreements, Ilona? He clearly stopped appreciating you. Shouldn't something be done? What's on your mind?" Ilona pondered. "I would go somewhere for a couple of days. Let him miss me first." That was our joint idea, she thought, but a problem arose. Remy, our daughter, there's no one to leave her with, and of course she can't be left alone with a busy husband. But maybe Remy. What if Remy? Could you take her with you? A challenging situation indeed. Why should our daughter become an obstacle to my break from my husband? Maybe it will be a sort of lesson to show him that I won't be tied to the house and suffer, reflected Ilona as a plan started forming in her mind. "Chase, Remy and I are leaving for 2 days. I want to relax with my friend. We'll stay in San Diego," suggested Ilona. Chase glanced away from his phone screen with some puzzlement. "You have nothing better to do? Why go to San Diego in winter? The forecast promises a whopping 14 degrees Celsius there." "I need warmth and fresh air," she explained. Chase nodded, diving back into his electronics, muttering something like, "Yeah, probably necessary. Can you eat by yourself?" "Don't worry, Ilona, I'll go to the store, buy food, I won't starve," reassured him. "Who are you going with?" Chase inquired. "With Macy, you don't know her much, she's a former colleague of mine," Ilona replied. But Chase only nodded briefly and said nothing more. Ilona couldn't calm down, the same thoughts kept swirling in her head. Why was his response so minimal? She recalled how they had met. 10 years ago, Chase, the brother of her former best friend, first introduced her to her future husband. He was tall, attractive, stylishly dressed, and young. Their relationship developed quickly and beautifully. Chase gave her the most coveted gifts, took her on dates to the city's finest places. Once, they even traveled to Paris. One of those evenings at a hotel near the Louvre remained etched in her memory forever. It was their first day in the city. They strolled through the central streets, saw the Eiffel Tower, the Louvre, had breakfast at a bakery on the summer terrace, and then checked into the hotel. "Will you marry me?" Chase asked, pulling a black velvet box with a ring from his pocket. Overwhelmed with sudden joy, Ilona squealed so loudly it seemed like the entire hotel heard her ecstatic cry. Perhaps indeed the whole hotel, she smiled. From that moment, a new chapter in their family history began. Years after the birth of their daughter, there were many wonderful evenings together, but something changed. Constant work delays, alienation, coldness. All of this made Ilona sadly ponder. Maybe it's not all that bad. Maybe he's just tired. Yes, I don't look as good as before. Maybe I should take care of myself, visit a cosmetologist. Ilona shared her thoughts with her friends. She read many helpful articles in women's magazines emphasizing the importance of being a good wife, taking care of oneself, cooking delicious dinners, and most importantly, not bothering the husband in the evenings. Ilona tried to follow this advice, but the relationship grew colder with each passing day. The day before the trip to San Diego, Chase suddenly embraced Ilona as she was plating dinner. "I've been thinking maybe things aren't going as smoothly between us. I haven't been entirely right lately, sorry. You're tired from taking care of our daughter. Maybe you should stay in San Diego longer? We've worked so hard for this. Book yourself a nice room for a week," Chase said. Ilona looked at her husband with surprise. "But we plan to relax together," she asked. We'll do that later, but right now I have a lot of work but I don't worry. Words can't express it, he added. Ilona felt relieved and messaged her friend Macy. I might have overreacted, everything is fine with us. He's just tired. Sometimes I have those moments too when a couple has been together for a long time. Throughout the evening, Ilona felt lighthearted as she packed for herself and her daughter for the upcoming journey. Remy quietly played with toys, humming something in her childish language, while Ilona unpacked a large suitcase by the door. She packed all the summer clothes she could find, a couple of bottles of cosmetics, and a swimsuit. Why do you need such a big suitcase? Chase asked, entering the room. It's a week-long vacation. I want to look nice in dresses, tops. Ilona started to justify herself, but suddenly Chase noticed, these are just Remy's things. You'll be hauling this stuff to the terminal and from the airport to the hotel by yourself. I thought you were going to see us off at the airport. Ilona stared at her husband, and Chase scratched his head, saying, I'll be busy with work, I'll call a taxi for you. Why should I see you off? In 5 minutes you'll go to check-in, what farewell is there? It would mean a lot to me if you saw us off, and to help with our daughter luggage stroller. Ilona tried to explain. All right, we'll see in the morning. Maybe I can manage to free up some time. After all, you're the department head. Can't you spare time for this? Chase retorted. I don't work for trivial matters. If I keep leaving for every little thing, no one there will hold me, he grumbled. Ilona decisively started packing her things into the suitcase. Trivial? Yes, wife and daughter, that's trivial. Fine, if you won't see us off, I'll manage myself. I can't take it anymore. She threw things, kicked the suitcase with her foot, and kept muttering. Chase decided that he had seen enough of this scene and went to the kitchen, muttering something like, yeah, she's all about herself. The next morning, Ilona woke up earlier than usual, forgetting about all the disagreements with Chase. But he wasn't in bed. She assumed he might already be in the kitchen and peeked into her daughter's crib. The child was peacefully asleep and seemingly not planning to wake up for a couple more hours. Ilona put on her robe and headed to the kitchen. Once there, she realized Chase was nowhere to be found. She grabbed her phones and began calling. Where are you? She asked anxiously. I'm on my way to work, what's the matter? Chase replied. I thought you were going to see us off after all, exclaimed Ilona, starting to raise her voice. What happened? I'm at work, it's only 7 in the morning, and you said you weren't going to be seeing us off, he retorted. We have all these burning projects here, there's not enough time for everything. So, bye for now, Chase said, and Ilona ended the call, adding her husband to the blacklist in her phone, muttering to herself, work at 7 in the morning. Remy, as if sensing her mother's irritation, decided to wake up and cried loudly. What a day, Ilona grumbled and went to her daughter. The day started off on an unpleasant note. Ilona didn't expect her husband to suddenly reignite the passion they had shown a couple of years ago. But she definitely didn't anticipate that he would not only stop caring for the family, but also do it so blatantly. The next hour passed by as if in a fog. Ilona rocked her daughter with one hand while using the other to call a taxi to the airport. She carefully packed the suitcases and completed the final preparations for the trip. When will we arrive at the airport? Asked the driver as Ilona got into the car. If possible, as soon as possible, please. It wasn't easy preparing with my daughter, but I won't break any rules, she replied. Thank you, Ilona exhaled with relief. I'm not asking you to break the rules. I just don't want my daughter to feel uncomfortable. The driver glanced at her through the mirror. And your husband doesn't help? He left for work in the morning, didn't even offer assistance. What kind of man is he? Well, I don't always help with everything, either bringing groceries, taking things to the airport. Perhaps you love your wife, and my husband probably doesn't love me as much? Ilona was surprised. I don't think that's the case, Ilona responded after a short thought. Maybe we've been together for so long, perhaps Chase is just going through a tough time, or we are. The vacation season was just beginning, but the airport already seemed crowded. The driver helped unload the luggage and wished Ilona luck in resolving her family issues, then quickly drove off to not block the passage. Ilona settled her daughter in a sling and headed towards the check-in area, while simultaneously sending messages to her friend Macy. I'm already here. Have you arrived? Ilona navigated through the crowd towards check-in counter number 12, where the sign San Diego was brightly flashing. The line there was long, and Ilona stood at the very end of it. "I'm here. Where are you?" came Macy's reply. "I'm at the check-in counter, come over." Macy quickly found the right line and joyfully waved at her friend. She only had a small backpack. "Where are all your things?" Ilona wondered. "They're here." "What does San Diego have to do with the suitcase? I need shorts, t-shirts, and you're taking a whole suitcase. Let me push it, it's in your way." Macy gestured towards the sling. "How are things going with you?" Macy asked. "It was tough this morning. Remy was crying constantly, and Chase refused to help with packing and didn't even see us off. He must have urgent matters, can you imagine?" "Do you want to hear the truth?" Macy asked, raising her eyebrows thoughtfully. "I don't feel comfortable. I feel like something has changed. Remember how caring he was a year ago? And now suddenly he's become elusive, like he's hiding something from us, Ilona. But it's not about a girl." Ilona shook her head. "Do you really think he can't handle his family because of someone else? Maybe that's exactly it. But understand, I don't want to upset you. It's just everything looks strange, and he seems to be drifting away from us. He hardly pays attention to our daughter. He's just tired, you see. It's all strange. I even doubt he has someone else. He's always busy at work, claiming he has a ton of projects that need to be completed as soon as possible." "Agreed," Ilona chuckled. "Men like to talk a lot but aren't always honest. I don't want to think about it right now. Let's go, it's our turn." Ilona approached the check-in counter, handed over her passport. "Where's your luggage?" asked the airport staff. "It's here," Ilona replied uncertainly, but Maisie decisively placed the suitcase on the conveyor belt. "Let me help, no need to rush. After all, it's our vacation," Maisie smiled. The airport staff printed their boarding passes and handed them to Ilona. Maisie quickly completed her check-in, and they headed to the waiting area. "We have an hour and a half until the flight. Let's go to the coffee shop," Macy suggested. "Great," exclaimed Ilona with enthusiasm. "I really want a cup of coffee and maybe some dessert." They chose a small, not too crowded cafe. Ilona settled into a chair and joked cheerfully, looking at her daughter. "You're quite the cheerful one, miss. Don't worry, you'll hold on tight and long near me." Ilona placed her daughter next to her and took the menu. "Here, a latte with some dessert." Maisie smiled and opted for, "I'll go for tea and perhaps a Napoleon." While they waited for their order, Maisie looked at her friend and asked more directly, "What's going on with Chase?" Ilona shook her head sadly. "I don't really know, to be honest. Even a few years ago, or even a year ago, everything was completely different. He was so caring, so attentive, giving gifts. We traveled a lot, bought an apartment and a car together. But now he's become completely different. We've lost our connection. Remy doesn't get the attention she should from him either. When I mentioned our trip, he hardly reacted and didn't even want to see us off. That's what concerns me the most. Fatigue is one thing, but the lack of desire to spend time with his family. It's strange. Don't you think he seemed almost relieved when you left?" "No, I don't think so. Though maybe he really is glad he won't have to interact with me for a whole week. I just hope that he'll miss me and maybe we can fix something." The waiter brought drinks and desserts to the table. "Would you like anything else?" the waiter asked. "No, thank you. Let's quickly finish this and go look for our flight, or we might be late for boarding," urged Macy, and Ilona nodded, already taking the first bite of her dessert. "It's delicious," complimented Macy, finishing her pastry. "And we have a whole week of vacation ahead of us. So let's forget about your Chase and just enjoy the moment. San Diego, the sea, the warmth, it's a real paradise." "Yes, you're probably right. It's time to leave that behind." "Yes, Remy." Ilona lightly kissed her daughter on the nose, and she giggled cheerfully. The flight went smoothly. Ilona looked out the window, listening to music and trying not to think about anything. The arrival in San Diego delighted the travelers with a warm welcome. The thermometer showed plus 23 degrees Celsius. "Wow, this is simply amazing," exclaimed Macy, taking off her sweater. "Yes, it's like real summer here. Let's take a taxi and head to the hotel. It's time to unload our things," said Ilona, enjoying the views of palm trees, sun, and sea. A single glance at all this was enough to feel endorphins flooding every cell of her body. "I don't even want to feel sad here," confessed Ilona. "It's just wonderful." And I told you, smiled Macy. The hotel where they booked rooms is exactly like the picture, stylish, modern, with a luxurious lobby. The nice girl at the reception promptly gave them their key cards. Everything was shown how to get to the elevator. There was a huge mirror by the elevator, and Ilona looked at her reflection in it. I've really let myself go, she thought. The jeans are too tight, and my hair. I need to visit a hairdresser. I used to always take care of myself, and now. She trailed off. We're in San Diego, we'll find a spa salon here, smiled Macy. What would you like? Shall we start with a hair salon, maybe dye your hair a bit and trim the ends? Great idea, let's go today. I'll take care of Remy while you're occupied, they agreed. The room seemed even more luxurious than they imagined. 2 rooms, one for Ilona, the other for Macy. In the center of the room was a large table and a beautiful armchair with green upholstery. But the main thing was the huge window, which offered a view of the sea. Ilona exclaimed with delight and hurried to open the windows to let the fresh sea air into the room. Now I'm just happy, said Ilona. And me too, Macy spun around the room, unpacking things into wardrobes and drawers. Can you imagine? We have a whole week. And now let's go to my Remy. Go, change your clothes, we'll head out for a walk right away. As if in response to this suggestion, Remy clapped her hands and laughed. The first day of vacation seemed to stretch out, turning into 2 days. One began in the morning at their home, while the second felt like a part of another world that was just beginning. Macy led Ilona to all the exciting places, starting with the local Boca, a shop where they picked out a beautiful beige dress with macrame-style cape. Put it on right now, come on, it suits you so well, it's superb, Ilona said ironically and headed to the fitting room. In a couple of minutes, she emerged in a new look. Well, how is it? Fantastic, and now it's time to go to the hairdresser, suggested Ilona. The path to the salon led through the central streets and pedestrian alleys along the seaside. Ilona turned her head not to miss any interesting detail. While the beach season had not yet begun, the city center was already bustling with tourists. She admired not only the sea and the buildings, but also the people, enjoying their style and charisma. She had always respected and admired those who found the time and effort to maintain their style. And here's the hair salon, let's go, said Maisie to her friend, leading her inside. Thinking short like a bob? Yes, replied Ilona, and perhaps some highlights, let's see what the hairdresser says. The salon smelled of flowers mixed with hair lacquer and dyes. A petite girl in a black apron approached them. Good afternoon. How can I help you? I want to do something with my hair, a haircut, and maybe get rid of the yellowish tones, explained Ilona. Take a seat in the chair. And you? I'll just sit here with my daughter, said Maisie, sitting down and holding Remy in her arms. Then she glanced at Ilona. Ilona spent an hour in the hairdresser's chair. She looked at herself in the mirror. Now she resembled her former self, a beautiful, well-groomed woman with ashy blonde hair and sparkling eyes. Taking a selfie, she sent it to her husband. I wonder what he'll say, Ilona thought as she got up from the chair. But when she joined Macy and her daughter, gorgeous, it suits you so well. And now let's go, Emir needs to see, said Ilona. The day was coming to an end, and the city was slowly descending into the silence of dusk. Ilona and Maisie strolled along the promenade and headed towards the seaport station with a tall tower that could be seen from afar. Then they returned to the hotel. Remy is tired today, a long day, said Ilona. Let's stay in the room, order dinner. And I, although not Remy, am tired too. I wonder what awaits us tomorrow. Have you planned everything? Maisie asked Ilona, looking into her eyes. Yes, I've sorted everything out in advance, Ilona replied with a smile. Suddenly, there was a sound of a notification on the phone. Ilona instantly glanced at the screen, which also intrigued Maisie. Oh, it's just a message from Chase. What is he writing? Nothing special, I sent him photos from the beauty salon, that's all, Maisie was surprised. He hasn't texted me all day. But now it's not my concern anymore. We agreed that during vacation I wouldn't think about him. And that's right. Besides, if I were in your place, I wouldn't text him at all tomorrow. After returning to the hotel, Ilona carefully put Remy in the crib and slowly stepped out of the room. It turned out unusually quickly, she sighed. Usually, it takes me half an hour for this process. It's really no joke, noted Maisie. Raising a child is a real challenge, isn't it? But at the same time, it's a source of joy, added Ilona. Okay, let's decide what to order. Here's the menu. By the way, I'm thinking of getting some champagne. Ilona looked uncertainly at her friend. Even though we're on vacation, I'm not alone here. I can't afford to drink. You can just ignore me if it helps, joked Macy. Well, maybe you'll allow yourself at least one glass, you've earned it. No, I'm not in that mood, but I'll happily have a cup of fragrant tea. I'll order a couple of hot dogs and tea. However, as you wish, Macy, chuckled Ilona, and I'll take a bottle of wine and some grapes. The vacation begins in 10 minutes. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Standing at the threshold was a waiter in a black suit. Good evening, your order, he said courteously. Thank you, replied Macy, pulling the trolley into the room. She carefully arranged the plates and cups on the table.